story of ancient Egypt begins with the mighty Nile River. For thousands of years before the first dynasty, nomads and early settlers gathered along its fertile banks, drawn by the promise of rich soil and abundant fish. The Nile's annual floods transformed the desert into a green oasis, enabling the rise of one of history's most remarkable civilizations. The river was not just a source of water, but the very stage upon which Egyptian society evolved, flourished, and sometimes faltered. As we journey through Egypt's history, we'll see how the Nile shaped every aspect of life, from agriculture to religion, and from politics to art. Early Egypt was divided into two distinct regions: Upper Egypt in the south, with its rugged highlands, and Lower Egypt in the north, where the Nile fans out into a fertile delta. These regions were not just geographic divisions, they shaped the culture, economy, and even the temperament of their people. Upland dwellers were known for their resilience, while the delta's inhabitants prospered as farmers. The eventual unification of these lands under a single ruler marked the birth of the Egyptian nation-state, setting the stage for millennia of dynastic rule. Along the Nile's banks grew papyrus, a versatile plant that became central to Egyptian life. Egyptians used its fibers to make everything from boats and rope to clothing, and most importantly, a writing surface. Around 3000 BC, papyrus began to replace clay tablets, revolutionizing record-keeping and communication. Many ancient documents written on papyrus have survived, offering invaluable insights into Egyptian society, administration, and beliefs. The word paper itself traces its roots to papyrus, highlighting Egypt's enduring influence on the written word. Egypt was ruled by pharaohs, kings believed to be living gods. The term pharaoh comes from the Egyptian word for great house, referencing the royal palace. Egyptians saw their rulers as divine intermediaries, responsible for maintaining order and pleasing the gods. Over 170 pharaohs are known by name, with Menes often credited as the first. The pharaohs' authority was absolute, and their legacy was immortalized in monumental tombs, temples, and the very fabric of Egyptian society. The earliest pharaoh, Menes, is credited with uniting Upper and Lower Egypt and founding the capital at Memphis. While archaeological evidence is limited, legends of Menes' achievements endure. Centuries later, Tutankhamun, the boy king, would capture the world's imagination when his tomb was discovered in 1922, filled with treasures and a solid gold coffin. These rulers, both legendary and real, symbolize the wealth, power, and mystery of ancient Egypt's monarchy. While Egypt's rulers were predominantly male, a few remarkable women ascended the throne. Hatshepsut, who ruled as pharaoh in the 15th century BC, adopted full royal regalia and led Egypt through a period of prosperity. Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, is famous for her political acumen and alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These women defied tradition, leaving a lasting mark on Egyptian and world history. Religion was woven into every aspect of Egyptian life. The Egyptians worshipped a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses, each with unique roles and stories. Over 3,000 years, new deities emerged while others faded, yet the core beliefs remained remarkably stable. The king was seen as a bridge between humanity and the divine, responsible for maintaining cosmic order. Myths, rituals, and monumental temples reflected the Egyptians' devotion and their quest for harmony with the gods. Belief in the afterlife was central to Egyptian culture. Egyptians thought that preserving the body was essential for the soul's journey beyond death. This led to the development of mummification, a complex process involving embalming, wrapping, and placing the body in elaborate coffins and tombs. Kings and elites took extraordinary measures to ensure their immortality, building pyramids and tombs filled with treasures and protective spells. These practices have left us with some of the most iconic relics of the ancient world. Egyptian civilization was among the first to develop writing. Hieroglyphs, the formal script, adorned monuments and official records, while hieratic, a cursive form, was used for everyday communication. Scribes, highly trained and respected, kept the machinery of the state running by recording taxes, legal matters, and royal achievements. The invention of writing was a key factor in Egypt's ability to centralize power and preserve its culture for millennia. Egyptians built with both mud, brick, and stone. Mud brick was used for cities, many of which have vanished due to the Nile's floods and the passage of time. Stone, however, was reserved for tombs and temples, ensuring their survival for thousands of years. The contrast between lost urban centers and enduring monuments highlights the Egyptians' priorities and their quest for immortality through architecture. The pyramids are Egypt's most iconic structures, built as monumental tombs for the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, constructed in the 2500s BC, stood as the tallest building on Earth for over 3,800 years. These massive projects required immense resources and manpower, reflecting the centralized power of the Old Kingdom. Over time, the scale of royal tombs diminished, but the pyramids' legacy endured, inspiring awe for millennia. Egypt's temples were not just places of worship. They were centers of economic, political, and social life. The Temple of Luxor, begun by Amenhotep III, exemplifies the grandeur of Egyptian religious architecture, with its sphinx-lined avenues, towering pylons, and sacred lakes. Temples were often enclosed by massive walls and filled with statues, reliefs, and offerings to the gods. They played a crucial role in maintaining the cosmic order and the king's legitimacy. The fascination with ancient Egypt is not new. By the time the Greeks visited Egypt around 500 BC, the pyramids were already ancient. Later, Roman emperors built Egyptian-style gardens, and cults of Egyptian gods spread across the empire. In the 19th and 20th centuries, discoveries like King Tutankhamun's tomb sparked waves of Egyptomania in art, fashion, and popular culture, a testament to Egypt's lasting impact on the world's imagination. For centuries, the secrets of ancient Egypt were locked away, their language forgotten. That changed in 1799, when Napoleon's soldiers discovered the Rosetta stone, a decree written in both Greek and hieroglyphs. This artifact enabled Jean-François Champollion to decipher hieroglyphs in 1822, opening the doors to a new era of Egyptology and revealing the voices of the ancient Egyptians themselves. Egyptology, the study of ancient Egypt, emerged as a scholarly discipline in the 19th century. Early explorers, archaeologists, and linguists pieced together Egypt's history from monuments, texts, and artifacts. Today, ongoing excavations and scientific advances continue to shed light on Egypt's past, from the daily lives of ordinary people to the mysteries of the pharaohs' tombs. Ancient Egypt was a true oasis, surrounded by the deserts of northeastern Africa. The annual flooding of the Nile brought fertility to the land, supporting a thriving agricultural society. The river valley and delta were the heart of Egypt's wealth, while the deserts provided minerals and acted as natural barriers, shaping the country's history and interactions with neighboring regions. Most Egyptians lived in villages and towns along the Nile, building their homes from mud brick. Agriculture was the backbone of society, with wheat, barley, fruits, and vegetables forming the staple diet. Fishing, hunting, and animal husbandry supplemented their food supply. Social structure was relatively stable, with most people tied to the land, but there was room for mobility, especially for skilled scribes and officials. Egyptians domesticated cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, pigs, and birds. Dogs and cats were beloved pets, while monkeys and exotic animals were sometimes kept by the elite. The Egyptians' knowledge of their environment was remarkable, and their relationship with animals was reflected in both daily life and religious symbolism. While the king and elite held most of the wealth and power, Egyptian society was not entirely rigid. Scribes, officials, and priests could rise through the ranks, sometimes even from humble origins. Women enjoyed legal rights, including property ownership and the ability to initiate divorce. Slavery existed but was limited, and many slaves eventually became part of free society. Egyptians excelled in crafts and technology, often adapting techniques from Asia and perfecting them. Their greatest technical achievement was the construction of massive stone monuments, including the pyramids. These projects required centralized organization and a vast labor force, made possible by efficient agriculture and state control. The Egyptian ideal was the nuclear family, but extended families were common, especially among the elite and rural populations. Marriage was generally monogamous, with no formal ceremony required. Women could own property and initiate legal proceedings, and while administrative roles were rare for women, they played important roles in religious life. Egyptian society was organized as a hierarchy, with the gods at the top, followed by the king, the blessed dead, and humanity. The king was seen as a divine judge and the maintainer of order. Succession was complex, often favoring sons of the chief queen, but sometimes involving other relatives or even unrelated individuals. Over time, the king's role evolved from absolute monarch to the head of a bureaucratic state. Writing was essential for Egypt's centralized administration. Hieroglyphs and hieratic script were developed around 3000 BC, used for everything from monumental inscriptions to everyday records. Literacy was rare, but scribes wielded significant power, managing taxes, legal matters, and the king's decrees. Egyptian writing influenced the development of the alphabet, leaving a lasting legacy. Egyptian art and architecture were highly distinctive, emphasizing order, hierarchy, and idealized forms. Temples and tombs were decorated with reliefs and statues, often depicting the king, gods, and scenes of daily life. These works were not just decorative. They conveyed religious and political messages, reinforcing the king's divine role and the values of society. Egyptian law was among the oldest in the world, originating with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The pharaoh was the ultimate authority, but powers were delegated to officials and judges. Legal proceedings were conducted without lawyers, with both parties presenting their own cases. Women and even slaves had legal rights, and property could be inherited or transferred through written contracts. Egyptian history is divided into dynasties, following the work of Manetho, a priest from the 3rd century BC. King lists, such as the Turin Papyrus and the Palermo stone, provide the framework for Egypt's chronology. Dates were often based on regnal years and astronomical events, making the reconstruction of Egypt's timeline a complex but fascinating puzzle for historians. Before the rise of the pharaohs, Egypt was home to Neolithic cultures that gradually adopted agriculture and settled along the Nile. Sites like Merim Dabani, Salama, and Al Fayyum reveal early farming communities, while the Naqada cultures marked the transition to more complex societies. The unification of Egypt under a single ruler set the stage for the dynastic era. The First and Second Dynasties saw the establishment of Egypt's first centralized state, the introduction of writing, and the construction of grand tombs. Kings like Narmer and Aha laid the foundations for Egypt's political and cultural traditions, while the capital at Memphis became the heart of the new nation. The Third Dynasty marked a leap in architectural innovation, with the construction of the step pyramid at Saqqara by King Djoser. Designed by the polymath Imhotep, this monument was the first large stone building in history. Imhotep's legacy endured for centuries, and he was later deified as a god of medicine and wisdom. The Old Kingdom, spanning the 4th to 8th dynasties, was a time of strong central government and monumental construction. The pyramids of Giza, built for Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, remain among the world's greatest architectural achievements. These projects showcased Egypt's wealth, organization, and the enduring power of its kings.